The best player in every round of your fantasy football draft is really going to come down to who has the most upside to finish as a top running back or a top wide receiver in your fantasy football season. That's what we're going through today by going through the best running back in every round of your fantasy football draft. And today we're focusing on redraft leagues. I've covered a lot of best ball, but we're focusing on our redraft leagues. And I am giving away free FFN hats once a week to somebody who goes down there, drops a like on the video, is subscribed to the channel, and gives me their hottest take for 2024 fantasy football. So go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and give me your hottest take for 2024 fantasy football. Starting out with round one, we don't really need to get into this too much. Christian McCaffrey has the most upside, therefore is the best running back in the first round of the draft. I don't think anybody will dispute this. I like Bijan, I like Breece Hall, but when you're talking about Christian McCaffrey, who has been a running back one in several years in fantasy football, we all know that the upside with him is fantasy football running back one. We think it could be with Breece Hall, we think it could be with Bijan. We've actually seen it with Christian McCaffrey, and there was nothing there to suggest that he was taking a downturn at the end of 2023. So let's go to round two. Round two, we've got some really good options here. I actually like two of them a lot here. So when we're looking at ESPN's ADP, there's two guys that are back-to-back between Jahmyr Gibbs and Jonathan Taylor that I think are fantastic picks. You can't go wrong with either. If I had to predict one of them to be the higher ceiling guy, it may surprise you. I actually think it's Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions here. Now let me explain my affinity for Jahmyr Gibbs above Jonathan Taylor. Is it because I don't like Jonathan Taylor? Obviously not. I was just gushing about him in several videos ago, and I've done it today by saying I think he could be a great running back option as well. When you're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, though, let's line the two of these guys up. Jonathan Taylor, what does he have in his backfield as well? Well, he's got a rushing quarterback who is elite with rushing upside. He is so packed with rushing upside, and he's also a big quarterback. What do we tend to see with bigger bodied quarterbacks? Somebody like a Josh Allen, somebody like a Jalen Hurts. What we tend to see from them is more rushing touchdowns at the goal line because their teams don't really worry about them getting bruised or battered or beaten up because they're so big, right? Anthony Richardson is a massive dude who is coming off a bad shoulder tear to his throwing arm, but the likelihood that he takes away more rushing touchdowns from Jonathan Taylor as opposed to Jared Goff taking away rushing touchdowns from Jahmyr Gibbs, it's not really close. That argument, it doesn't exist. Now, the one thing that people will counter with that is David Montgomery's going to be the guy who steals a bunch of goal line work from Jahmyr Gibbs. That's 100% true. I'm not here to argue that. What I am here to argue is this. I think that both guys are fantastic options at price in fantasy football drafts. But my thing with Jahmyr Gibbs is that we know for a fact, not only is he going to get 12 to 15 carries per game between the 20-yard lines, he's also going to get 4 to 5 to maybe 6 targets a game this year and become their true Alvin Kamara piece whenever the New Orleans Saints had Mark Ingram as that guy who was carrying at the goal line. Both of them were still effective, but one of them had the higher ceiling, and it was Jahmyr Gibbs because of the receiving work, and we know he'll get that because Jared Goff isn't a running quarterback. Running quarterbacks can run the ball and either extend the play or just go take it themselves. Jared Goff is a pocket passer who's going to want to deliver the ball. So in my opinion, Jahmyr Gibbs just has slightly more upside, but like I said, totally fine with taking Jonathan Taylor here in the second round if Jahmyr Gibbs isn't there. They're really, really close for me. In round three, there's also a couple good options here as well. You can look at the ADP on ESPN right now, and you'll see a lot of really good names in this range. Devon Achane, James Cook. My favorite is Devon Achane. Again, what we need to remember here when we're trying to identify the best running back in each round of your fantasy draft is who has the most upside in fantasy football. Now, when I'm looking at James Cook, I really like James Cook. James Cook is a guy that I like, and I recently just called him a bust-proof running back. But my problem with James Cook is that, as I was saying with Jonathan Taylor and the Anthony Richardson potential to hog touchdowns at the goal line, well, Josh Allen is someone who does that a lot. That's why James Cook only had 2 rushing touchdowns last year. So his upside to get in the end zone at the goal line is just not quite there. Then we're looking at Rachaad White. Rachaad White in this range I actually like a lot too. You're getting him closer to the back of the third round than you are to the front of the third round. I really like Rachaad White too. I am a little bit nervous, though, without Dave Canales there. Dave Canales kind of made Rachaad White who he is, so what does he do without him? The one guy who's only had positive changes and really not many changes at all is De'Von Achane. De'Von Achane is someone who I was not big on coming out of the draft in 2023. I'm not going to hide that from anybody. But what I really like about De'Von Achane is that he came out and he showed how elitely athletic he was right away for the Miami Dolphins. He did not hide. Obviously, he was a complete animal for the first several weeks of fantasy football when he broke onto the scene, and then he finished with like a modest 17 fantasy points per game in half PPR format. I'm calling that modest because compared to what he was doing, it is actually modest. Now, do I think he's going to maintain like 7-8 yards per carry? Of course not. That's just not realistic here. He's going to get more work, which is definitely going to minimize and decrease the value of the efficiency that you'll see on a yards per carry basis. But with De'Von Achane here, he's in one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. The Mike McDaniels run offense is also a 2 running back system that he got from. Where did he coach beforehand? He coached the San Francisco 49ers with Kyle Shanahan and learned the 2 running back system with him, who Kyle used plenty often until he got Christian McCaffrey. But now, De'Von Achane, Raheem Mostert, those are the 2 guys there that Miami wants. And De'Von Achane in his second year is definitely going to get more work than Raheem Mostert this year, as long as he's healthy. And by the way, reports were good earlier this offseason when they were saying that De'Von Achane was putting on muscle this offseason. So De'Von Achane, to me, if he's able to stay healthy for 15, 16, 17 games and provide you a lot of spike weeks, he's going to provide you some down games as well, because Mostert or maybe Jalen Wright, sleeper alert, might have some big games as well. But De'Von Achane is going to control the backfield for the most part. And if that's the case, De'Von Achane is going to have so many spike weeks that could definitely lead him into a top 5 to 7 finish in fantasy football. Now in round 4, what I'm looking at here is Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is really my favorite option, and really there's only 2 options, him and Kenneth Walker here. Now, let me just say this right away. I'm not choosing Josh Jacobs because he's the better between the 2. That's a given. I think he's better between the 2. I actually prefer Josh Jacobs over De'Von Achane. I prefer him over James Cook. I prefer him over a lot of the 3rd round guys. I think Josh Jacobs is an excellent pick at the 4th round of redraft leagues. Now, Josh Jacobs is someone that I've talked about quite a bit this offseason as well. I've had him consistently ranked higher in my running back rankings than consensus does. If you go to Fantasy Pros, see the expert consensus rankings, I've got him ranked much higher than most others do on that platform and really everywhere else. The reason why is because Josh Jacobs is coming into a situation that he has never seen with Las Vegas. He's also got a quarterback who is totally ascending like a rocket ship and actually does provide some dual threat ability. Not that Jordan Love's going to be running for like 400, 500 yards this year, but he keeps the defense on their toes, which is what a rushing quarterback does to raise the efficiency for a running back. So Josh Jacobs is going to be in a better offensive situation than he's ever had with the Las Vegas Raiders. This is just a fact that we're heading into with Josh Jacobs. So when I'm looking at him compared to Kenneth Walker, who is probably going to be sharing at least 8 to 9 to 10 touches a game with Zach Charbonnet, it's really a no-brainer here. Because yes, the backups for Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, and Marshawn Lloyd, the rookie, I actually kind of like Marshawn Lloyd a little bit, and A.J. Dillon has gotten some positive press this offseason, positive reviews from Matt LaFleur, but Josh Jacobs was signed to be the guy because, make no mistake, the contract on the screen, that was not an accident. They want this guy to be their running back 1 by a mile, who they give probably 20 to 25 opportunities most of the season for. Now, in round 5, I'll be honest, I really don't like round 5. I'm not a fan. If I had to pick one guy, I know who I'm going with, but I want to make it very clear. My draft strategy is not going to be taking running backs in round 5, because the only 2 options you've got on ESPN ADP is Aaron Jones and Ramondre Stevenson. And yes, I prefer Aaron Jones. Again, we're talking about upside here. And I think the best way to juxtapose these 2 players is to look at what they did from a volume perspective last year. Ramondre Stevenson, all signs should indicate based on the contract that he got this offseason and based on performance last year that Ramondre Stevenson is going to definitely get more opportunities on a per game basis than Aaron Jones will. I really am not going to argue that. What I'm going to argue is that Aaron Jones, with the upside in mind, just has more of it than Ramondre Stevenson. Minnesota is definitely not going to be as efficient as they were with Kirk Cousins here. But what people need to realize is that the truth of the matter with Kevin O'Connell, their head coach, offensive guy, former quarterback, this is a guy who doesn't run the ball much. And that might sound bad for Aaron Jones. I actually think it's a little bit good because Aaron Jones has been, he's had some injuries over the last 2 years of his career. Aaron Jones is still a very efficient guy when he's healthy and on the field. So what if they limit his carries to 7 or 8 carries a game, but they give him 5 targets per game? That's going to be tremendous upside, especially in a PPR league, to where Ramondre Stevenson, who knows if he has that many targets per game in him. And the other problem I have with Ramondre that I don't with Aaron Jones is that Ramondre Stevenson is without a doubt going to be on one of the bottom 5 teams in the NFL this year. I'm calling it right now. The Patriots are going to be a very bad team. And I'm sorry if that ruffles feathers of Patriots fans. I think it's a rough season, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. That's why I have a whole section every single week of the season getting into what I got right and what I got wrong. But right now, I'm telling you, I think the Patriots will be bad, and there is history that links bad running backs to bad NFL teams in fantasy football. That's just a fact. And so if Ramondre Stevenson's on a bottom 5 offense, a bottom 5 team, he's just not going to have the upside that Aaron Jones does. Now, let's look at round 6. This is really a clear answer for me. And actually, there's some decent options in this range, but let's be realistic here. I know I'm going with 2 Lions running backs, but David Montgomery is such a great pick in the 6th round. I just can't believe that I have to keep talking about him over and over and over again the past 2 off seasons now because of how disrespected his price is. Again, I just don't get it. David Montgomery, what I just said earlier, is going to get the goal line work from Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery last year had over 12 touchdowns on the ground, and he missed time, by the way. David Montgomery had several games with more than 1 rushing touchdown. David Montgomery is going to continue to be this guy for them because he performed well for them last year. Had a career high in efficiency and a career high in rushing touchdowns. David Montgomery's not going anywhere because he signed a 3-year, $18 million contract just last year. And he performed well on that, so why would they all of a sudden phase him out for Jahmyr Gibbs? It's not going to happen. They're both going to continue to be good fantasy backs. And you want to know how I know David Montgomery is a smash pick with his touchdown totals right now? The line on Underdog is 9.5 rushing touchdowns this year. If David Montgomery stays healthy, this is a smash hire. You need to smash the hire on it because their coordinator, Ben Johnson, 2 years now with the Lions, coming onto his 3rd year, has had 2 running backs in both years. So it was DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams in 2022, and Gibbs and Montgomery in 2023. They both combined for 20-plus touchdowns on the ground. Dave Montgomery's going to get 10 rushing touchdowns at the very least this year, and that's what makes him a great pick in these redraft leagues, and also why you should take advantage of it on Underdog today. And if you haven't signed up for Underdog, use code FFN, where if you deposit $10, they will give you $250 to play with in free bonus cash. They're literally throwing free money at you to go draft in some Underdog drafts, or to just play some pick'ems right there on a daily basis, whatever you want to do with it. Just use code FFN to get that $250 in free bonus cash. Now, let's go to round 7 right here. Round 7, there's definitely some decent options because we're getting into that point where there's some values here in the middle of a redraft league, which is typically 16 rounds deep. The guy that I really like the most is Brian Robinson Jr. I've kind of been all on Brian Robinson Jr. for a while now. I think Brian Robinson Jr. has a ton of upside for where he's going in fantasy football drafts. Now, let's look at the other guy who I thought about taking here, which was Najee Harris. Najee Harris on a contract year, coming into the year with a new offensive coordinator who is run first and also does really like a physical running back. And his O-line is improved. I actually kind of like Najee Harris at cost this year, but I don't like him better than Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, some may disagree with this, but I do believe that Brian Robinson is going to be the clear-cut running back one. And Austin Eckler, I actually think, is going to be pretty irrelevant this year in fantasy. Brian Robinson Jr. is the guy who's going to get all the carries. Now, the one thing that Brian Robinson doesn't have above Austin Eckler for his whole career is targets. Obviously, Austin Eckler has been a target hog his entire career. Where's the problem here, though? Remember earlier when I was talking about running quarterbacks not throwing the ball much to their running back? The reason they do it is because they have legs of their own, and when the play breaks down and they have pressure in their face, they can just roll out of the pocket and either buy themselves some time to throw it down the field to make a play, or just take off themselves. There's actual data that's backing up quarterbacks with 500 plus rushing yard seasons equaling lower target amounts on a per game basis for the running back one in their particular backfield. That's not good for Brian Robinson, but you know who that's really, really bad for is Austin Eckler. So the only way Austin Eckler is really going to get a bunch of targets per game is if they commit to drawing up 3 to 4 plays a game just for Austin Eckler. What's the likelihood they do that with a 30-year-old running back who they didn't commit much money to? I would say it's unlikely. Brian Robinson Jr. is going to control this backfield. And you know the other reason Brian Robinson Jr. has actual upside is because with running quarterbacks, it increases the efficiency and it also sometimes increases the likelihood that they'll get touchdowns in at the goal line. Because Brian Robinson Jr. has a smaller framed quarterback, not a big framed quarterback like someone like a Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson or Jalen Hurts here. So I'm pretty convinced Brian Robinson Jr. across the board, best ball and redraft is a great pick for where he's valued at. Now round 8 here, 2 guys I really, really like. Couldn't go wrong with either of them. Honestly, it's sort of a coin flip here. I decided to go with Zach Moss over Raheem Mostert in this round. So with Zach Moss, the reason I like him better than Mostert is because I think he has a better path at monopolizing the backfield in Cincinnati than Raheem Mostert does. That's really the thing that separates the two from me. Because when I look at Raheem Mostert, the same thing applies to Miami's offense that I said earlier with Devon Achan's offense. Devon Achan, Raheem Mostert, they're going to combine to be in one of the most lethal offenses in the entire NFL. So that obviously raises the value and raises the efficiency of a running back when you're running with Mike McDaniel's system over there. So, of course, like I said, Raheem Mostert is a great pick at this range. But Zach Moss, I think, has a clearer path to monopolizing this backfield in Cincinnati. I think that what it ultimately comes down to is that Chase Brown, look, they had an opportunity to basically give him the keys this offseason and sign a backup for him, but they didn't do that. They went out and signed Zach Moss for more money than Chase Brown was getting. So I'm not saying for a fact that Chase Brown is going to be the guy who is just a backup and Zach Moss totally monopolizes his backfield, but I think he has a better shot of doing it than Raheem Mostert does because of Devon Achan. So when you combine all that with an elite offense, which if Burrow is healthy, is going to be a top 5 to top 10 offense in this league, you want a running back on a top 5 to top 10 offense in fantasy football, and especially in the 8th round of fantasy football drafts. Now, moving on to round 9, we're looking at a couple guys here that I actually still do like as well. Tyjae Spears and Javonte Williams, my top 2 guys in this range for sure. And I'll tell you this right out of the bat, Javonte Williams, I've taken a ton of him on underdog drafts. Best ball drafts, I see the value of taking Javonte Williams. It's so different in a redraft league. I advise you, stay away from taking Javonte Williams in a redraft league and stick with someone like Tyjae Spears. The reason why I'm saying this to you today is because we just recently got a report from a Denver beat reporter. Take this with a grain of salt, do whatever you want to do with it, do your own research. What I saw in the report was that a reporter believes that Javonte Williams is fighting for a freaking roster spot on the 53-man roster with Samaje Perine. Not good. Not good at all. So that alone makes it very, very risky to pick in a redraft league. Now, the price isn't obviously too bad. and when we're sitting here literally in the 9th round, if you don't have your running back 2 by now, you probably screwed up somewhere in your draft. But we're looking for a running back 3, a running back 4 right here. Tyjae Spears is the guy that I would just trust more in a redraft league because I know he's going to have guaranteed touches. And as we sit here today, I'm not convinced Javonte Williams has guaranteed touches. I think if Javonte Williams is on the roster and he is the running back 1, he has more upside than Tyjae Spears. The problem that I have with it is right now, sitting here today, we don't have that information. So if you have your draft in the next week, the next 2 weeks, and nothing changes with this, Tyjae Spears is your guy because he's on a revamped offense, now with an offensive first head coach, a quarterback who's got a big arm coming into his second season, and all new weapons around him with the wide receivers. There's going to be definite upgrades to this Tennessee offense, and Tyjae Spears is definitely going to have a seat at the table. Now, the 10th round right here, again, we're getting close to the area I don't like, so I can't really heavily endorse who I'm about to say, but Devin Singletary is the guy I prefer versus Blake Corum. Those are the only 2 guys in the 10th round on ESPN drafts, and I just don't like Devin Singletary very much. I gotta be honest, like, I've done a lot of studies on Devin Singletary this offseason, and it's ironic that I don't like him because he surprisingly fits the criteria of a breakout running back and a surprise league-winning running back. That's a video I did like 2 months ago where I tried to find the connections of guys like Kyren Williams and Raheem Mostert and Josh Jacobs that we've had over the past several years who were later round draft picks but ended up being top 3 running backs in fantasy football. Devin Singletary actually fit all those things, but my gut is just telling me it's not going to be very as good as it sounds for Devin Singletary. So I'm going to say stay away from Singletary largely, but I do prefer him over Blake Corum because of the fact that Blake Corum is just getting a lot of hype right now, and maybe it's valid, but Kyren Williams with the season that he had last year, this wasn't some run-of-the-mill season where the Los Angeles Rams can easily just justify moving off of him. I don't think it's possible to justify moving off of Kyren Williams, even to give Blake Corum like 10 touches. I just don't see it, so if that's the case and he doesn't get more than 10 touches, Devin Singletary, the starting running back, is definitely the guy that you want to take in round 10. Round 11, I actually kind of like 2 guys in this range. Gus Edwards and Trey Benson. 2 guys that I really could see with going here. And I've taken both of them a ton on underdog this year. I prefer Gus Edwards in a redraft league. And the reason why is because when I look at Trey Benson, again, similar to Javonte Williams, tons of best ball upside in my opinion. Different in the sense of we know Trey Benson's making the roster for the Cardinals, but similar in the sense of we don't even know if he'll get, 10 touches a game. The reason I like Trey Benson in a best ball league is because I do think that he has late season upside, or if James Conner was to go down at some point. But I like Gus Edwards because we don't know for certain yet, but we have a pretty good idea he's going to be the running back 1. And we know one thing about Jim Harbaugh. He runs the ball down your throat. He wants to have a guy who's going to handle the ball 300 times a year. Now, is Gus Edwards going to handle the ball 300 times this year? Unlikely. Not predicting that. But just on the basis of getting a ton of carries in an offense that is totally geared towards running, and they've made drastic improvements to that offensive line that keeps growing, I'll take Gus Edwards over the rookie, who I do believe has really high upside, but definitely a lot more question marks in this range. Now, we're going to go through rounds 12 to 16 here altogether because the running backs in this range, really just not loving any of them. I think the one guy, if you want to take a shot on one guy in the last round of your draft a defense early, draft a kicker around early, save your last pick for someone like Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle, I genuinely don't understand why he's going this late. Rico Dowdle, this is a public service announcement, should be going probably closer to the Tyjae Spears area in round 9. Rico Dowdle very well could be the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys, not some bottom 5 offense. Maybe a top 10 to top 5 offense this year. So, yes, Zeke Elliott is obviously the big name there, but he's definitely past his prime. And Rico Dowdle, is a player who's much younger, again, on a really good offense. So I don't have a ton of endorsement to give him. I don't love the way he's played over the years. Is it because he hasn't gotten enough opportunities? Maybe so. Maybe that's a question and a discussion we can have. But I can tell you this for a fact. Rico Dowdle at the back of your redraft league is absolutely a shot that you should be taking in 2024 fantasy football. So let me know what you think of the video in the comments below. And if you want to see some bust-proof running backs to target in 2024 fantasy football drafts, click on this video right here.